when it comes to limiting beliefs, like first and foremost, they're there for a reason. You know what I mean? Like you believe them. And usually we believe things if there's evidence attached to it, right? So a big part of, I would say some of my original limiting beliefs before I became like a fit person was that I'm not attractive, right? Simple as that. I was chubby, I was brown, no girls liked me. So I had almost the right to believe in that, you know what I mean? But just because that's my current reality, does that have to mean my future reality? No. And that's when the difference comes in, right? And so when it came to sort of transforming that limiting belief, there was two things involved. I had to first, obviously, want to believe in it. And the second part is I needed to take action, almost like evidence to prove that that belief was also true. I can't just be like, I'm attractive, and not do any work. Not going to work. But on the second hand, I can do all the work in the world, get fit, get ripped. But if I don't believe in it, I'm not going to actually have that belief.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the High Performance Management Podcast. This is actually episode 12. Awesome. Things are moving. Today I've got Gareth here, co-founder of Man Up, personal trainer, mindset, self-love enthusiast, and really just trying to spread the message of personal development and trying to find your purpose and passion. And so this episode is going to be really interesting where we're both in a similar space, both got a really inspiring mission trying to help men and really anyone empower themselves and change the world. So thanks so much for coming on today, mate. You're in Melbourne at the moment, seeing Jay Shetty and Gabby Bernstein. So this is, how's things been?
Good, man. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to dive into this conversation. I think, like you said, there's not many people that's kind of in this space of connecting that mindset with the physical body as well. So I feel like we're going to have a good discussion here. I'm in Melbourne. It's pretty chill right now. Just staying at my uncle and auntie's house. So yeah, more yours. Let's get to it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Funny you're in Melbourne. We've got Melbourne weather right now. It's like literally 10 degrees. Like I was walking.
25 here. We've like swapped.
25? What?
Yeah, crazy.
That's nuts. Yeah, man. I think you nailed it there with the mind and body thing. But I personally, my mission is to be leading professional in the area of mind and body connection. So let's really dive into that because I know, obviously, being a co-founder of Man Up, that stemmed from some, internal issues you've battled over the last 5 to 10 years, like mentally, mental health-wise. And I assume we've had a similar journey where you started exercising and you've just seen massive growth. We're both pretty fit, both in the fitness area in the past and yourself too. So yeah, let's dive into that. Like, what was your first introduction to fitness?
Sure, man. Very late, actually, bro. So I'm 25 now. I actually only stepped foot in the gym when I was 20. Obviously played sport throughout high school or whatever, but it was never like a big thing in my life or a priority. And classic motivation, it was actually a breakup that got me to step foot in the gym. I guess at my lowest point, I was a little bit overweight. I was unhealthy, had no motivation or even any sort of understanding of who I am as a person. And basically, growing up, even as like a brown guy, like a South Asian background, we don't really see many fit people in our space at all. Look at our parents, look at our grandparents, heart disease, like stomachs and all that kind of stuff. And so it wasn't, like I said, it was never a priority. But then when I was 20, going through this breakup, at a pretty low point in my life, I was like, you know what, man, I just want to get shredded. I just want to get sexy. I'm so sick and tired of girls ignoring me. The motivation at the start was so superficial, right? But sometimes you need that.
Yeah.
And so my friend who's been gymming for a while, I was like, hey, bro, can you show me how to use the gym? I'm going to sign up. And, like I said, I had a 3-year goal to just get shredded. I wanted to look like this Instagram model. And I asked my friends, how long will that take? They said, guys, that's going to take about 5 years, not going to lie. And I said, I'm going to
ask, what is your first physique goal? Who was it?
It was this guy from Spain, bro. His name is Alex Sherpy or something, completely random. I don't even know how I found him.
You just saw it, you're like, wow.
Bro, he was he was lean, you know what I mean? It wasn't one of those big bodybuilder type looks. It was just lean, sexy, very beach aesthetic, which is kind of what I wanted to go for. And yeah, man. So then I asked my friends how long would it take. They said 5 years, and I said, nah, I'm gonna do it in 3 years. So I basically set myself a 3-year goal to just get shredded, right? That was the initial motivation. And so I went to the gym, learned how to use it. I was very lucky that my friends showed me how to use it quite well. Like I learned a lot about like mind muscle connection, recovery, like splits, things like that. But I would say for the first 2.5 years of that 3-year goal, I had no idea what I was doing to an extent. You know what I mean? Like there was no plan, there's no intention behind it. And the cool thing about the gym is, right, you could do it wrong and still get results, right?
Yeah. Especially in that first few years, eh?
Exactly, bro.
Yeah.
Those beginner games, bro. And I started running heaps, like, because I thought at the time cardio was key. I was like, going on the treadmill every day, but basically getting myself into that deficit and lost a bit of weight, started looking good, and started getting attention, man. And I think initially, like I said, it was that superficial goal of wanting to get shredded. But 3 years later, I got that goal, but I was probably at the unhealthiest I'd been on like an internal level as well. Like I was like starving myself. I was like feeling guilty about food. And so then for the next 2 years after that, I was like, actually, let me just see how I can make fitness a part of my health and become healthy, not just becoming shredded. And so over time, that superficial goal really transformed to become more of like a mental goal. The gym became my place of meditation. It became a place where I could go and just, it was like the only place during the breakup, right? It was the only place I had gone to where I just had peace. You know what I mean? Like no memories of this girl, no like, like whatever it is. I was just there with my pain and with my music and with my podcast, just listening, growing, developing. And it became like a little dojo, a safe space, you know what I'm saying? And then basically, like as I had reached my goal a few years later, I just focused on maintaining and refining the craft. And that's when I got into like personal training, because I was like, oh, if I could do this for myself, maybe I could help others as well on the side. And it was like a side gig at the start as well, because I wanted a job that was more flexible with the man up work, which we'll discuss, I'm sure, in a second. So I did the set 3 and set 4, did it in about 6 months. And I was like, let's do it. And basically was thrown into the deep end at the gym, because I applied to the gym that I was training at. And they were like, yep, you can start next week. And I was like, whoa, what? Are you serious? And it was quite scary, because when you start, you got to pay rent, you got to get clients. I had nothing, right? And so when you get thrown into the deep end, I think that's when you actually start to find a way to make it work. And so I had a few clients from like some close friends and started working. And I guess what I discovered with all of them was, sure, I could help them go to the gym, give them a program or whatever, and they'll see results. But I didn't want that to be my goal. My goal was I wanted them to wake up and see fitness or the gym or physical activity as a necessity to their lifestyle, to create a healthy mind. Because that's what happened to me, right? The gym became that place where I was like, I go to grow, I go to develop. And if I can show up 100% at the gym, where else can I show up in my life? And that's when I realized that this connection is a lot more interlinked between the mind and the body than going to get shredded. And so with my clients, I really focus on a lifestyle shift, not just a program and here you go. It's how can I actually get you just this is a part of who you are, your identity. So we work on like limiting beliefs. We work on like diving in to like stories that you've told yourself about your body as well, because that's a big one as well. Because if you can't change that identity, you're not going to change your body. You might see short-term results.
Yeah.
In the long term, it won't make a difference. So
100%.
yeah, man, I mean, that's long story short, how it all kind of started.
Yeah. No, I love that. There was one thing in particular that I think's really an important thing to demonstrate in this conversation for the people listening. So I know you started because of that pain of the breakup, and you said you weren't getting attention. So you've got this pain of the breakup. You're feeling like fuck, like I'm not wanted. I'm unworthy because this girl's left me, or it didn't work out or whatever. And you're like, I'm pretty much I've got no future. But then. And so you're struggling with getting, girls and that. But then by going to the gym and getting shredded, you're like, oh, I started getting attention. But I would love to ask, how much of it was really how you looked and how much of it was how you viewed yourself?
Yeah, true, man. I never really dived into that. I would say it was probably like a 40% of like how I looked.
Yeah.
Probably 60% of how I looked made me feel about my confidence for myself,
100%.
self-esteem. But I guess like does go to show though that there is an element of self-esteem associated to the way your body looks and the way your body feels, right? And obviously we don't need to say that you need to be shredded to be like self-worth. That's not true at all. Your self-worth comes from yourself, right? But when you have a fit body, right, you can do more things. You can show up with more energy. So obviously you're going to feel better.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the biggest difference in terms of, the attention that I was trying to get. It was like, this guy has got energy. He's motivated. He's driven, right? That's what it was. To be honest, man, I got more compliments from guys about my body than I did.
Yeah. Far, bro. Nice forearms. Like,
Literally, bro. I remember I was taking a piss one day just at the club, and I got into boxing as well. I did a bit of boxing, and I was taking a piss, and this random guy just like looks over at me while I'm peeing. He's like, "Hey, bro, are you a boxer?" I'm like, "I do boxing." He's like, "I can tell," and I was like, "Is that the best thing ever?" Like, I just felt so like, yeah, you notice, you know what I mean?
it's always in the
But yeah, bro, like girls
that, so
yeah, bro. But yeah, girls couldn't really care too much, man, to be honest. As long as you're healthy, like, it doesn't make much of a difference whether you have like 8% body fat versus 12, right? You know what I mean?
yeah. I think it's a culmination of like a bunch of things though, because it's like you're saying, when you weren't really eating right, you were kind of like unmotivated. You like, because when you don't have the gym, you don't have that outlet. Like, where else does it go? Because like I had a similar thing with like when I was battling depression and anxiety and addiction, and it's like I was being obsessed, but like about the wrong things.
Yeah.
So I'd be obsessed about like binging or like, doing substances. And it's like when you introduce a different type of habit, like you only have a certain amount of energy and time to put into stuff. And so like, I think that's like the importance of having healthy habits. Like everyone talks about healthy habits, but it's like, it's not that they're healthy. It's that there's these habits that are moving you towards something or they're taking you away. And it's like when you start doing the gym, like you did, and then you're now committing to yourself, and you're now like that the time that you're putting into that, and like the things you're listening to, just doing that change you. And it's like that's I think that's the fundamental thing about personal change is doing those type of things as well.
And you hit it on, like, I think it's all about energy dissipation, right? You can't actually get rid of that energy. And so you might dive into even like for me, right, the mental kind of part of it as well. Because when I was sort of in that really depressed state, towards the end of my relationship in 2017, I was like hurting myself, you know what I mean? I was punching walls, I was harming myself. And all that it was just like me needing to get this energy out of my system, but I hadn't been taught the skills on how to do it in a healthy way. That was my goals, right? And so when I started to use the gym instead of punching a wall, I started punching a boxing bag, right? I didn't get rid of that feeling. I just replaced it with a healthier way of dealing with it. And I think that's huge, right? Because people think that you need to like stop feeling sad or stop feeling angry. Nah, you always feel that, but you need to figure out a way to channel that energy in a healthier way.
Yeah. Well, I want to validate exactly what you said. I don't know if you even noticed it. You mentioned you said depressed state. This is a huge thing, especially the guys listening, because I know you'll have a lot of guys listening to you because it's Man Up, which we'll dive into. But depressed state, that's exactly what it is. And this is the problem I have with the current state of, or the paradigm of what depression is, and the current medical system, which prescribes, medication to change a biochemical imbalance. The way we need to move towards it's exactly that. It's a state. The fact that people can say, oh, depression is a biochemical imbalance. What about if a saber-toothed tiger jumps into the room right now and I have a spike in cortisol and epinephrine and, a drop in all the other chemicals? Technically, that's a biochemical imbalance, right? Like, I think it's a momentary space and time that you have different balances. It's a fantasy to think that you're going to be, one standard thing. So like, I just want to say that what you said there is very important. Depressed state. Can we dive into that? Because like, I think that's so important for guys to understand. Like, when did you make that shift to saying, instead of identifying with your feeling of I am depressed, I am this, I am happy, I am sad, when did you start to shift into states?
Probably couldn't pinpoint exactly when I started using that terminology, but I think it obviously came through the work that I do, with the men's mental health space as well. Because, like if you said to an average person, depression isn't real, you can't really say that, right?
No.
And I also wouldn't say that either, because I think the thing that we're talking about is almost like once you've understood that, it's like the next level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you don't want to invalidate people who might actually see, like, they need to have that diagnosis to an extent, right?
Yeah.
You need to have that first and then move past it rather than completely skip it. And so when I realized, like, well, depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff, right? And what I noticed, a lot of people in my environment was also going through that, those feelings and stuff like that. And it's almost like a normalized thing when you're like 18 to 25, right? To be diagnosed with something. And I think the benefit of a diagnosis is that it can give you a bit of closure or clarity.
Mm.
I think the con, which is what we're talking about, is that you can start to really identify with that label, therefore not do other work to potentially get out of those
Yeah,
states.
you limit yourself.
You limit yourself, man. And like, I know for a fact, man, that some people do. I know friends who have had depression and they tried everything. They exercised, they ate well, they hung out with the right people, and they still couldn't get out of it. In those situations, they needed a medicine to almost give them like a jump start, right?
Mm.
Jump start to get back on track.
Mm.
And that was perfectly okay, right? But then there are also people that would rely on that medication as well, right? And I'm not here to say medication is good or bad. It's about understanding when you're relying on something as a crutch versus when you're using it like training wheels to actually help you. And so I think you understand the difference between the two, because I have this like 6 model well-being thing that I kind of follow. And basically what it looks at is, if I'm ever feeling like sad or angry or whatever it is, right? Something might have happened in my life. That's a situational thing, like someone died. If I got a breakup, obviously I'm going to be sad. I can't ignore that.
Mm.
The moment that I start to dwell in it or start to use it as my identity, because often we can get validation through that identity, right?
Mm.
Oh, poor you, poor me, blah, blah, blah. You're getting attention, right? And so you can really stay in it. And it's a trap, man, because I remember I read this thing one time and it was like, no one ever talks about how comforting it can be to be like, stay depressed, because it's a comfort zone after a while. And I think
you get addicted to it, man.
Yeah. And until the pain is bad enough, in order to change, you're not going to change. You know what I mean? But I have this 6th thing, which I talk about. And basically it's like 3 tiers. So like level 1 is like, how's my exercise? How's my nutrition? And how's my sleep, right? If all of them are under control, and trust me when I say most people don't have this under control.
Absolutely don't know.
I then move on to my 2nd level, which is mindfulness and gratitude. Have I been practicing mindfulness? Have I been practicing gratitude? And if I've done those 2, I then look into my 3rd level, which is my relationships. Am I hanging around the right energy? If I'm doing all of that correctly and I'm still feeling upset, then I'll go see professional help. I'll go see a psychologist, or maybe I need to see something deeper, right? But 95% of the time, bro, it's one of those things not in order. And as soon as I get one of those things in order again, I'm feeling good. And so I think depressed state is important to recognize, because we don't want to dismiss any feelings. But depression really is just sadness that's been prolonged, right? It's numbness, it's grief, it's pain that's just been going on for too long. And we can get out of it. We need to manage it though. Once we get out of it, we can't just get out of it and ignore all the things that made us feel good, right? We need to keep doing the exercise, keep doing the meditations or whatever it is. I think that's what life actually is, right? Life is, in the Buddhist kind of scripts, they talk about how life is about suffering. Life is genuinely like suffering. It sucks.
Yeah.
You need to actually do things every day to like not make it suck. And that requires work and effort, which most people are not willing to do, man. And I think some people don't even realize that they're in a sad place. Like, they're just so blind to it. They don't know what they could be feeling. And that is my mission as well, is how can I help you to step up and be like, oh my goodness, there's so much more to this life.
I think you said a really important thing just there, that they don't know what to feel. And so like, personally, when I'm with my clients, like all of like depression, anxiety, those are, for me, like this is my structure. You've got your 3-tier thing. Mine starts from clarity, because in my experience, like I was on suicide watch. I tried to kill myself, had addiction, had all these things. I was literally depressed.
Yep.
By the psychological term and everything like that. But knowing how to feel, that was the biggest thing for me. As soon as I learned, hang on, how do I want to feel? I had a target, and then I could start figuring out, how do I get there? Now I looked at like, hang on a second, like, why am I feeling this way? And then I realized it's the reality I had in my head about how I wanted my life to look didn't reflect in the reality I was seeing with my eyes. And so feeling sad, like, was just a comparison, because you can't have, it's like what you're saying, the Buddhist thing, like, like desire. What is it? The desire is like the root of all pain or something like that.
Probably, yeah, yeah.
And it's like you only have that pain because you are aware of the fact you don't have it.
Yep.
And it's like getting clear, like what you said, like choosing how to feel, and then that comes down to your mindfulness. Like, what are some of the things you do for like you said, you got to be aware of the fact you're depressed. Like some people, like it's automatic, or especially like for me, like for a long time, mine was like guilt and shame emotions from like when I was really young, and so like I almost became addicted to that feeling, and so there would be situations I'd make myself feel guilty. Oh, I'm sorry, I feel bad for that, but it was just an addiction. But I had to become aware of that. What are some of the like mindfulness techniques
For sure.
that you do to start to become aware of these?
Yeah. I think also defining what mindfulness actually means as well, because
Yeah.
people think it's about meditating and being quiet. Mindfulness is basically the ability to be present from moment to moment, right? So when I'm on this call with you, I'm listening. When I'm with my girlfriend, I'm with her. When I'm
Yeah.
doing like work, I'm working. I'm not on my phone distracted.
Yeah.
And I think this skill is definitely fading, as we kind of dive into a world where we have constant distraction, we have social media.
The distractions. Right.
Exactly, man. So for me, I think mindfulness it's like a muscle, right? It's just like when you go to the gym, you do bicep curls, you grow your bicep, right? Mindfulness is a muscle in our head or in our body, whatever you want to put it, which we need to actually practice getting better. And there are different exercises that we can do, just like there are different bicep exercises, there are different mindfulness exercises. One, for example, is meditation. And for me, meditation usually involves like connecting to my breath as an anchor, right? How can I actually just listen my breath going in and out? I have other mindfulness practices, such as even going to the gym. How can I feel my body pushing those weights, right?
Mental peace. Yeah.
Exactly, bro. That mind muscle connection. Going into nature, bro. How can I listen to the trees, the birds, in feeling the ground beneath me, right? Like I'm actually there.
Yeah.
And even another one for me, it's a big one is, and I think it's unique to everyone else, but for me, like cooking and painting, like these are my creative outlets, which I'm very present. And when I'm doing these things, I don't think about anything else. And I feel like for different people, there are different activities to be mindful. But once you've sort of understood what it means to be present in the moment, you can then apply that to other things, such as having a shower, going to work, even doing something you don't like doing, right? When you apply mindfulness to it, you actually give it more attention and you find the beauty in it as well.
That was beautiful. I'm going to say that was like really well said. I like the fact that you said mindfulness is a muscle. Sounds good, but yeah, like I think what you're highlighting is it's an awareness, being aware, and it's very hard, like you said, to be aware in a world where everything's trying to grab our awareness, and that's the world we're in now, and that's how you also become successful.
100%.
As well, as to how do you get the most attention, but we should be fighting for our own attention. No, that's cool, man. That was a good chat about your 3 little pillars that you follow there. In terms of your journey with the Man Up, being a co-founder and influencing the youth, how did that begin? Because that's a like we haven't even really touched on that, but that's like been a big part of the trajectory that you're on now, and it's really you talk about the 3rd pillar being relationships and like community. Like that's a big thing. I think a lot of people are quite, they're not on purpose, but a lot of people are quite selfish in their, pursuits. So that's like a really, you're really giving back. How did the whole Man Up thing start?
I'll quickly explain what Man Up is, and I'll dive into the story. So what Man Up is, it's a not-for-profit organization that I started with a friend of mine, and we're based in Perth, WA mainly right now. And what we do is we go around high schools all across WA, speaking to the boys about forming healthier understandings of masculinity, breaking down outdated stereotypes and helping them form their own definition of what it means to be a healthy man. We talk about relationships, we talk about consent in like a real world point of view. And probably the most important part is we also dive into mental health. We help boys understand what is mental health, how to get away from the stigmas that may hold you back, how to be vulnerable yourself, and also how to check in on a friend as well, right? And the way that we're quite unique or different to other organizations is that we'll go in and there's a bunch of volunteers, like people like who are me. We'll split up the whole cohort of boys into small groups of like 10 to 15, and we just chat. You know what I mean? Like they're very intimate conversations. We don't let teachers listen in. It's probably the first time ever that a guy at school has been able to talk about whatever's on his mind. You know what I mean? And we create that space. And it's gone quite well. We're only 2.5 years old. We've got a whole team now. Still very much voluntary based. We don't really have any paid positions at the moment. We've got one guy who's on like a part-time salary. And so we're looking to really get some support from the government and things like that. The way or the story that this started was, obviously I'm one of the co-founders. There's two of us, me and Haseeb. I came from a point of view which was the mental health, and obviously when I started going to the gym was sort of when this whole thing began. So it was during like 2016, 2017, where I was in a very, I would say, dark place, probably the darkest place I've been on a mental level. And just like you said before, I was just not aware of what I was doing. I had no purpose, no clarity in my life, no connection to who I was, what my goals were, what my dreams were. And I was living on like an autopilot, just going to uni because everyone else was there, doing a degree because everyone else was doing a degree. I was sort of in line to take over a career, which I didn't want to take over. And I was in that relationship at the time, which, although we were both good people, it wasn't a very healthy relationship. And so I basically ignored all this problems, right? Because in my head, it wasn't a problem, right? I was living a pretty good life. I was at school. Had heaps of friends, but I kept ignoring that little voice in my head that was like, something's not right here. You need to change. And as time went on, I kept ignoring the voice and I kept bottling in those feelings, right? And you probably know this. The more you bottle something in, what's going to happen? It explodes, right? And so 2017 was that year where it kind of did explode, where I was feeling a lot of stress with all these external situations. And I had no, like I said, no connection to who I was or what my purpose was. And so on an internal level, I was very hollow, and I relied on the external to make me happy. And so slowly, as I started to get really stressed out, emotions started to spill out. I started to get really angry. I started to drink on the weekends an excessive amount. You know, like there was even a point where I passed out like on the weekends, woke up in an alleyway because I was just so like, get me out of here. You know what I mean? Like, let me just drink. I don't care what happens. I used to punch walls, like I said, until my knuckles would bleed, man. And basically get into a lot of arguments with my friends and with my girlfriend as well at the time. And so towards the end of it, in my worst state, I was actively like self-harming. I was drinking on the weekends. I was just like in like the darkest place, bro. Like I can't even, you know, when I look back on it now, or if I told my 15-year-old self that in 5 years you'd be doing this to yourself, I wouldn't have even believed that. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just goes to show how mental illness and these feelings can really creep up on you if you don't have the right tools in place when life gets stressful. And we don't learn these in schools, right? We don't learn how to stress in schools.
Yeah.
And so boiling point was when it all blew up in my face, when basically I had to go to the hospital one night because my girlfriend and my sister had to take me there because they were scared. I had to obviously then start having therapy, and then a week later my girlfriend breaks up with me. And that was sort of like this boom moment where I was like, holy shit, like what just happened? And it woke me up and like made me become aware, like, geez, what have I done? Like, who am I without this person in my life? And that was at rock bottom of like, do I still want to be here? And obviously very grateful that I had a lot of friends who, although I pushed them away, they came back and they literally picked me up. They took me to the movies, they took me to the beach, made me stay aligned. You know what I mean? That's when I started going to the gym, started eating a bit healthier as well, and basically started having discussions about my vulnerability to the people around me. And most of them were women, but I started talking to the guys as well in my life. And what I realized was through these conversations, I realized that a lot of my guy friends who I was genuinely best friends with were going through the exact same thing. You know what I mean? I had friends tell me that they were 30 seconds away from hanging themselves. Other ones wanted to drive their cars into like the freeway, into the pillars or whatever it is. And it was crazy because these are literally the people I have known for like 10, 15 years, right? Like my best friends. But these discussions were just so foreign. It wasn't like a normal thing. Whereas when I was speaking to the girls in my life, they always talked about their problems. They always talked about their feelings. And it was like a whole new world. And so a few years later, like I hadn't started Man Up straight away, but it was only a few years later that I realized like, I think something needs to happen, because I went on this trip to America where I spoke about my story, and all these American guys were like, I feel the exact same way. And so then I realized that this is an issue that affects everyone on an international level as well, not just at home. So that was kind of like why I wanted to do this. My co-founder, Haseeb, he kind of came in with more of a mentality that was based around the actions that we can do that will harm others. For example, the women and the non-binary community, right? Sexual assault, derogatory comments, making women and sisters and mothers feel unsafe. And that comes from a deep-rooted insecurity in masculinity as well, right? It's like, I feel bad, so I'm going to affect someone else instead. Whereas I affected myself, he was recognizing that he was affecting other people. And so we kind of came together to form this company, right? Man Up, where we're like, we need to get to the root of this, which is all about breaking out of pressure, the pressure to be a man, right? Nothing wrong with being a man, nothing wrong with being masculine, but when there's a pressure to be masculine all the time, that's when these mental illnesses can come about. And that's when we can start hurting other people. So we came together in 2019, and then we started really small, man, like doing like one workshop, because we pretty much launched as COVID launched, right? So we only got like 1 or 2 schools in that first year. So we started doing like online content, created a bit of a team. So we pushed it on a community level. And now we're at the level where we have bookings every week. It's really exciting, you know what I mean, to see that we're actually making some change now. The kids love it. Like, that's the best thing about it. The kids love it. Even the volunteers, man, we form like a new level of growing together as men, because I'm sure you feel the same way. We never really had those mentors, right? Like, where can I have
Not at school. Yeah.
not at school, bro, at all. Like, where can I have a community where I can talk about my problems? I can cry in front of the guys and not feel embarrassed to cry in front of them. Yeah, bro, that's sort of what Man Up is.
That's great. No, I can really tell that this is a deep thing for you. It's not just a vanity thing or like a social proof thing. It's like you went and you did the work, and it's resonates with you very deeply on like a soul level. I think you said something I'd love to touch on. Pressure of being a man. What does that mean to you?
For sure. Well, obviously, we've got masculinity and femininity. We can't really deny that. And each of these states have characteristics or traits and qualities, right? For example, some masculine traits are to be assertive, to be dominant, to make money for the family, to be physically attractive, right? To be tall, to be muscly, whatever it might be. And so these have been stereotypically associated with being a man, right? And we're moving into a society now where we're not necessarily tying gender to sex as well, and that's perfectly okay. But masculinity as a concept is its own thing, right? Being a man, you can be masculine, you can be feminine, you can be a mixture of them both, right? And so the pressure to be a man is basically when you can't disconnect masculinity with being a man. And so you think that because I'm a man, I have to be masculine all the time. I have to be strong. I have to put away my emotions. I have to be assertive. I have to make the decisions. I have to make all the money. That's a lot of pressure, man. Like, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of pressure. No one is the same. So how can we assume that all men...
I think you said a really important thing. You said have. I have to. Anytime you have to, I should. You're going to should all over yourself, right?
Yeah, bro, exactly, man.
Injecting society's values is the number one way to get depressed. Like that's what happened to me when, again, the reality I had in my mind compared to what I was viewing. I would say, I should have this. Why isn't this happening? And so what I was doing, I was injecting what was expected onto reality, which wasn't. And so I started feeling those symptoms of depression, and you start questioning, like, something, you get that voice, like something's wrong. And then that's why these guys are almost guys now, you know, you drink heavy on the weekend, you, mate, should we right? No dramas, blah, like, you know, so that's really important, what you're saying there. You're right, it's fluid in terms of the energy of being masculine and feminine, because for me, my definition of masculine is like A to B, straight lines. Feminine is like curvature, it's creative, it flows. And so there's times where you've got to be strict and rigid, but then there's times where you've got to be flexible with life. And yeah, you're dead set on that being, what did you say? You said being masculine and having it attached to being a man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
rather than,
yeah, because a lot of older people have grown up with, you have to be like, masculine is man. There's nothing different.
Yeah, that's it. Masculine is man.
Yeah, that's when that pressure comes, right? Because we all can't be straight line all the time.
No.
And like you said, what is it? It's disappointment is where we always have expectations, right? And so if we expect to be like that all the time, which is unrealistic, you're going to be disappointed naturally. You're
Yeah.
going to feel shame, you're going to feel anger, you're going to feel guilt. You might even be embarrassed, right? And so, a big thing that we do is we help boys realize that you can break away from masculinity when the time calls for it. Because what we call toxic masculinity, right? You hear that word everywhere.
Mm.
Something can only be toxically masculine when there's that pressure involved, when like a man feels like he has to be like this. Therefore, that becomes toxic, right?
Mm.
Masculinity is not toxic at all, right?
No. The person's toxic,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Like it's up to the person how it is. Because it's just the energy. It's how you use that energy.
And it's so deep rooted. It's very subconscious. Like I said, I know that inherently I'm allowed to be masculine and feminine. But when you're in it, when you're so lost in it, you just start to really go back to default and start to like keep things in. And you know, there are definitely a lot of men out there who they know that it's okay to be feminine or whatever, but they still will never do it because they don't want to embarrass. They don't want to, you know what I mean?
But also, it's like even knowing, like it's just not, it's simply not understood enough or talked about, because this is a whole new thing, and this is like what yourself and I are starting to do, becoming aware of thoughts, becoming aware of, like, you know, what it is you actually want, like how do you get there, instead of like I guess like I should do this because someone told me to do it, or my parents want me to do it, or my friends are doing it, so I suppose I'll do it. And then this is what causes all that problem. It's that lack of clarity of themselves and lacking of awareness of these thoughts. Yeah.
Spot on.
That's great. And so let's move a bit into, so your Man Up's becoming its own thing, or is now its own thing. I actually went to the Speakers Project with Julian. Shout out Julian. And I had two of your guys there.
Sweet.
Yeah, of course.
I think Anton, Harry. Yeah.
Anton, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Anton, Harry, yeah. So that's becoming its own thing. I know you're now working diligently or making your own personal brand, moving more into the mindfulness and health and well-being space. So what are some of the things you're working on there, and how are you making that transition?
Yeah, so I guess the current vehicle is my personal training sort of business. I work through Revo, but the beautiful thing about being a PT is that you can actually kind of do whatever you want, right? You can choose your own hours, you can choose your own branding, all that kind of stuff. And so my kind of approach to all of this is bringing the best of both what I'm doing on the side into like its own thing, right? And I've kind of like labeled it, it's called empowered, right? That's what it is, because the goal is, and I think you know this very well, is no one will change until they feel capable of doing it themselves, until they know who they are on an internal level, until they can get rid of those limiting beliefs that hold them back, right? And that applies to physical, to nutrition. If anyone wants to achieve any kind of goal in their life, they can't do it unless they have fixed that initial issue, which is the limiting belief in themselves. And so I guess moving on, right, one of my goals is sort of, you know, when I look at people like Jay Shetty, Lewis Howes, like all these big guys, like to an extent, I want to kind of do what they're doing, but focus a bit more on the day-to-day, the habits, the routines, the wellness aspect, how we can combine nutrition, fitness, support networks to optimize our life and essentially connect back to self-love. How can we choose to not be controlled by fear in making decisions? And it's, look, this is like a very low-key thing right now. Like I run like a 5-week mindset course, but I have a plan for this year. So essentially have like an online platform where I can help coach people with these things, right? And like I said, PT will be the current vehicle for it, but I want to, in the long term, step out of being a personal trainer and do more of like the core issue first and foremost. I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like 100%, but, you know, look like having courses, having seminars, speaking at conferences, writing books. And I think a big part of what I want to do as well is have a big emphasis on young people, at least at this age, people from a South Asian background as well, because like I said, we don't really have many people who are brown skinned doing this kind of work, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it, but as I started posting content on TikTok and Instagram, whatever, a lot of brown people started following me and looking up to me. And that was never my plan, to have like a gender.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but just because I look like them, they were like, wow, this is someone to look up to. And so
Yeah.
I guess this is kind of like my responsibility now is how can I actually transform this culture as well?
Yeah, I
Um,
was gonna say, what are some of those cultural things that like are kind of ingrained in South
Almost.
Asia? That,
yeah,
what
so
is
my family,
thinking?
we're Sri Lankan, so just under India, little island country.
Yeah,
Very similar to South Asian kind of backgrounds where mental health isn't a thing. Um, Getting fit isn't really a thing because, to be honest, it's a luxury to get all those things because over
yeah,
there, their goal is just
I
survival.
love that. It is a
Yeah,
luxury, bro. I had
it's
this thought the other day, man. 100%. I was like, I don't want to go to the gym. I was like, wait, I wouldn't. Some people don't even have a gym.
exactly.
I love that. Yeah,
So like it's almost like human needs, right? The first you need to fulfill the first human needs of having food, having water, having shelter. Then after that's having financial stability. And so once you've only gotten that, can you really then focus on the next level? And so I think, like I said, in our culture, there's a lot of immigrant families that have moved to Australia where the kids now are comfortable because of their parents. Um, but they're also still quite lost. There's a lot of generational trauma as well. Um, and there's not really, it's like this weird space where we're not really Australian and we're not really from our hometown either. We're like in the middle.
mm,
And so what often happens then is these kids will just go into doing degrees or jobs that they feel pressure to do because of their family, doctors, lawyers, engineers, the
yeah,
classic,
yeah,
because it's a safe option. And obviously, like that's huge, man. Like if I was smart enough, I probably would have done that as well, right?
yeah,
um, but I think there's a huge gap because a lot of, like I said, brown people are like, wow, like can do other things in my life. I can focus on my health, my fitness, my mental well-being.
yeah, yeah,
If I can be like an example for this community, and even in Man Up, what I noticed is that about 60% of our volunteer base are like brown kids, just because I'm brown.
yeah.
I mean, it's like it's crazy how that happened. But I think it's really cool, because it's my natural influence. Is just because I'm dark skinned, I'm going to get other dark skinned people looking up to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's massive. Like I think cultural again, like we talk about like my perspective of why we self sabotage, why we binge drink, and why we feel depressed and everything like that is a lack of clarity and normally living within other people's values. And I think this is very culture, which is ingrained beliefs over how long, I don't know. That's like a massive thing. Like you talked about limiting beliefs before, like cultural beliefs are almost just you can't even look at it as a belief. It's like there's no question, right? Like, especially like you're saying, doctors, engineers, like you don't even have to, you can't question it. Like, that's it. You're gonna make your parents proud. They worked hard because they busted their ass, which they did. And I almost like I love that about people who have migrated over because they just compared to Western culture, you don't have that, man. We don't have that. We're entitled. We don't understand the actual graft that comes with moving your family for a better life. Like,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah, that's huge, man. I didn't even. I'm just realizing this now through this conversation. Yeah, like there's a whole, my white privilege showing a bit, but like that's cool. Like I think everyone deserves to live a life on their terms that they create.
yeah,
So yeah, that's awesome. I love that's like something that's come up now.
yeah. There you go.
Yeah, man. No, speaking about limiting beliefs, what were some of the biggest ones you had to overcome in order to, get to this place where obviously it's going to be fluctuating. You're not like automatically better now, but like, life is going to be so cyclical. Well, yeah, what were some of those big limiting beliefs that you found were holding you back?
I think when it comes to limiting beliefs, like first and foremost, they're there for a reason. You know what I mean? Like you believe them. And usually we believe things if there's evidence attached to it, right? So a big part of, I would say, some of my original limiting beliefs before I became like a fit person was that I'm not attractive, right? Simple as that. I was chubby, I was brown, no girls liked me. So I had almost the right to believe in that. You know what I mean? But just because that's my current reality, does that have to mean my future reality? No. And that's when the difference comes in, right? And so when it came to sort of transforming that limiting belief, there was two things involved. I had to first obviously want to believe in it. And the second part is I needed to take action, almost like evidence to prove that that belief was also true. I can't just be like, I'm attractive, I'm attractive, I'm attractive, I'm attractive, and not do any work. Not going to work. But on the second hand, I can do all the work in the world, get fit, get ripped. But if I don't believe in it, I'm not going to actually have that belief. That makes sense. It's going to be like an endless cycle of trying to get better and better and better without ever being happy. And so that was like one of my big ones, is that I'm not attractive enough. Another one was I'm not good enough to have a romantic relationship. And that's something that I'm still working on right now, because I've had 2 relationships in the past that I would say failed miserably. You know what I mean? I didn't have the awareness to understand how to navigate that healthily. I did things that I don't regret, but like I would never do again. You know what I mean? And when I look at, so right now I'm in a new relationship, and it's going quite healthy because I'm doing a lot of work, but I still have these thoughts creep up in my head like, damn, do I even deserve someone like this? Or if I feel anxious, right? What action can I take to just absolutely confirm this limiting belief that I'm not good enough and ruin it? It's like self-sabotage, right? And the reason we self-sabotage is because it's comfortable. That's our identity. And it's hard to break out of it. You know what I mean? So even with this current belief in this current relationship, like I'm doing a lot of work. I'm like, okay, how can I firstly believe that I am worthy, but also take action, right? So that might mean I give special attention. I do this, do that. And so it's interesting, you know, because that first relationship, when I came out of it, bro, I was like, I'm never getting a relationship again, because
that pain,
like,
that's
so
painful. Too much for
like, never, ever, ever again, bro. Like literally, if you had met me like 4 years ago, like never, bro. Like it wasn't a thing that I wanted to touch because I didn't want to hurt it again. But that's the core of all limiting beliefs, right? It's like just like a fear of something.
Yeah.
What else did I have?
Yeah, protective, man. Like at the end of this is like a big part in my course, big module, is the fact that we've got 3 brains. One of them's a primitive brain that was there literally to save our lives from doing dumb shit and not getting fucking eaten by tigers. So it's like, that's still there. That's still like the most hardwired part of our brain. So like, yeah, these are all things. But then it's like the new part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, is like about trying to find ways on, you see it being, again, well, awareness. I think awareness is more of a newer thing. Hey, because 100%. Being aware of like I think the biggest thing I've realized recently is that you're gonna, like, we have this primitive part of our brain. We can't take it out, and you're gonna feel those things happen, those limiting beliefs, but they actually are valid in that part of the brain. Like it makes sense because it's like subconsciously, even if you're not aware of it, there is a perceived threat.
Yeah.
And it's, becoming aware of that through, like, for example, like, this is a good one, actually. Guys listening, like, this is how I work through limiting beliefs. For example, your one about not being good enough to exercise, or was that first limiting belief you said you had?
Yeah, just like I'm not like attractive, you know what I mean?
Not attractive. So like, how did that impact, if you kept that belief, how would that be impacting your day to day?
I mean, huge, man. Like my confidence would be down. I wouldn't be able to like talk to women. I wouldn't be able to take risks in business and things like that, right?
Yeah. Like you speak, like what's the most people you've spoken in front of?
Maybe like 1,500.
That's crazy. And like, imagine like for me, like for everyone listening, that's how me and Gareth got in contact. Was that well, not that exact one, but like,
yeah, it was that one. Yeah, it was that one tied with another one that I did.
Yeah.
A week after, yeah.
But it's like we wouldn't have been on this path right now. We wouldn't be having this conversation, sharing this information to people. Even, your South Asian guys listening to this might be getting a lot of value. This would never even happen if you didn't have that belief, if you didn't break that belief.
Exactly.
Like that is like, I think that's massive. It's like, if you've got a limiting belief, how is it actually negatively impacting your life? And like using that little monkey brain, that like primitive part, finding pain in what you believe in.
Yeah, 100%.
That's huge.
And like I said, I think the pain has to be big enough for you to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so, speaking, man. How you said your first speaking thing was in America. Tell us about that. Because it sounds like you went through like a massive, you took huge action, and then you're like speaking in America, bro. That's crazy.
Nah, so I was kind of lucky with the whole speaking American thing. So I did this program called Leap, which is like some leadership program for young people.
Yeah.
And you go to UCLA, you spend a week there, and there's mentors from all over the US coming to speak to you, like even celebrities, man, like Mark Wahlberg, Paul Abdul. Like it's pretty cool, man.
Leap.
Um,
L-E.
Leap,
Leap.
L-E. Yep, yep, yep. And so I went in 2018 as a student, and I liked it so much. I came back the next year as a coach, where I had like my own group of people, and we were like, facilitating all that kind of stuff. And one of my other friends, his name's David. He's quite big in Perth, actually. David Castellanelli. He was someone who I looked up to for ages as well. Like he has his own business and he's speaking, going to schools, like pretty good looking, like all that kind of stuff. And, obviously I look up to those people. I want to be like them. And so there was one specific workshop that was only for the men on that Leap thing. And it was like, it's called How to Be a Gentleman. Pretty outdated because the guy that ran it was relatively outdated. And so David had the opportunity to kind of go up there and modify it for a bit. And he was speaking, and then he was like, Gareth, do you want to actually come up like for like 5 minutes and talk about your journey around mental health and stuff like that? And I was like, that would be sick, you know what I mean? So I went up and bro, I shoot myself. Like I was in front of like 200 boys or whatever. And it was like an interview, like a panel discussion type thing. And we spoke, and I remember someone recorded that speech. And when I watched the recording, there was a point where I was just saying the word like man up, like 6 times or something. And I was like, I like that. That's very catchy.
Wow.
Which is really sick, right? Because that was like the first moment where I was like, what I have or my experience of pain can be helpful to other people. It was the whole sort of motivation behind that. And so I think I've kind of overcome that fear of public speaking. I did drama in school. That definitely helped me. But I think when you realize,
I wouldn't have thought you're a drama guy.
Bro, full drama guy, man.
No way.
Yeah, I was actually going to be doing acting. But then I kind of, my limiting beliefs of being a brown boy in the industry, I stopped doing it.
Not being attractive.
I didn't want to be playing fucking the IT guy, bro, all the time. You know what I mean? So,
fuck, this is crazy.
Yeah, bro. So then I think a big shift in the way I viewed speaking was rather than thinking about what are they going to think of me, I started thinking what value can I give to them? And that's when you drop the ego, you just go up there and speak.
Yeah. I think that's a massive lesson anyway. Like I had crippling social anxiety when I was younger. Like not worrying about what other people thought is social anxiety. Like I used to I had to count my footsteps because I couldn't, I thought I was walking out of pace.
Really?
Fucking weird. Yeah. Like just irrational anxiety. Like that's what it was. And I just realized shifting awareness. I was like, what does the wind feel like on my face? And just taking that. And I was like, hang on, if I saw some guy walking, again, shifting it to what are people thinking away from me? Yeah, if I was seeing someone walking, would I care? No. And it's you're so right. Taking away from being, thinking about what they're thinking about you to how you can give back. I think everyone be living their life like that. That's amazing.
Cool.
And I think you said a massive thing because you don't know what you don't know. And learning things, knowledge is uncovering these areas and shining the light in the dark on the things that you didn't know were there. It's a lot of inner work as well, but brings me to investing in yourself. These ideas, these philosophies, this is the reason I do the podcast, is to share people's journey, to have a conversation and essentially extract the philosophies in life. We've already talked about so much today. And I think investing in yourself is the number one way to just learn from people's experiences. What's your experience in investing in yourself? And what would you say to, the guys who are, at that point of there's got to be more I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. For sure, man. I mean, that's a good question because we don't really understand what investment looks like. For example, going to the gym, that's an investment. You're paying that $10 a week. That's an investment into your health, right? When you go grocery shopping and you spend $100 a week on groceries, that's an investment into your body, into your nutrition, right? But we don't look at it like that. We look at it oh, I'm wasting money on this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But in order to achieve or go to the place you need to go or want to go, you have to do what you've never done before. And that might mean spending $100 on groceries. It might mean spending $10 a week on the thing. For me, it looked like investing onto books, man. I read a lot when I was going through that tough time because I think again, reading was something that brought me into the present moment a lot. So obviously I'm seeing Gabby Bernstein tomorrow in Melbourne.
Yeah.
She was an author where I read one of her books when I first, was going through this, and it changed my life, man. Like that book
Yeah.
was like,
What's that? The manifesting one? Is that what it is? Like manifest your.
she does like books like that. But this book was called The Universe Has Your Back.
Ah, that's it. Yeah, sorry, that's the one there.
Such a good book, man. And even like my cousins or here, like they've read it. We're going to see her because that book changed our life.
Yeah.
But that was an investment. I went on courses like going to Leap. I spent like 2-3 grand. I did like other courses in Perth, like MJB seminars, things like that. What else did I do? I think also like investing time into like hanging out with the right people is a big thing. And it sounds pretty transactional. Like I hang out with these people to get this out of it. But sometimes you got to think like that. You know what I mean? Because you never know the value that could come from an interaction.
I mean, like realistically, it is a transaction. Everything we do, like even from a biological point of view, everything in our body is a transaction for the most efficient path. So it's like, if you've got a goal, you're not going to do the most least efficient way. So like, I think, yeah, I think it's like a weird one, that, because I think it comes from like an ego thing, like, oh, don't be transactional. But it's like if you look at it, you strip back the foundations of what we think it is transactional. Everything actually is a transaction. The calories you have, it's a transaction for the movement you get.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with investments, right, obviously you can make the wrong one sometimes. That is up to you to be aware enough to be like, did I make the wrong decision? And if you did, like, if it's like a one-off purchase or whatever, like, cop.
But is that even, that's the investment? Because now you know.
At this stage, 100%.
Yeah.
But I think there's not enough investment going into ourselves in this world.
Totally.
We spend money on a lot of other things. But I think it's like exponential when you invest it into yourself. You can like grow so much more outwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm big on like spending money on personal development, especially on people who are where I want to be.
Yeah.
You know,
like just, yeah, well, that's like me at the moment. I've got a few projects working and it's like, I don't know how to do it. I can spend my time, but it's like, I know people now through my network that have already done it.
Yeah.
I've been messaging people. I'm like, hey, let me pay for an hour of your time. Like,
that's it.
You know what I mean? I never ever thought like that. I used to have like pretty scarcity mindset, always worrying about money and things like that. And it's like now I'm like, same with books. Like people can put 10 years of their life into a book that's 200 pages and you're getting that for $30. Yeah. Like even if the whole book's shit, there might be one thing in it that completely, again, you don't know what you don't know. It just opens up your like awareness of it.
Good man.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistake is to think that we know everything.
Yeah. And that in itself, that belief, as soon as you say, oh, I'm the fittest, or for me, when I was in my sales, oh, I'm the best at sales. As soon as you say that, you limit what your growth is.
100%.
Yeah.
There's always something better.
100%. How are we doing on time, by the way?
I'm chilling, bro. It's like up to you.
Awesome. Cool. No, I just make sure because I didn't actually recall what time we started.
You started like an hour ago, so.
Yeah. No, it's been good so far. I think we've touched a lot on, like your ability to be present in the moment, mindfulness, pressure of being a man, disappointment is expectations, luxuries of things like investing. I think it's really important. What's if you were to speed up to where you are now, what were 3 things that you could tell yourself on this beginning of this journey that would get you there quicker?
It's almost like you don't want to be going quicker though, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
Obviously, because it's all the process, but it's all the journey.
It is.
I would say like realize how important like small steps are. For example, like even the gym, right? You're not going to go there once and become this ripped guy. It takes like small things every single day. So like even with Man Up, like just keep doing it kind of thing. Like don't stop or don't give up because your goal is so far away. Just take that small daily action.
Yeah.
What else would I say to myself? I would say actually probably fast forward. I would fast forward like meeting the right people that can help me grow. Yeah. I'm only really stepping into like the whole mentoring space now and getting mentors for myself now.
Yeah.
Because for ages I was like, I don't really know anyone. I don't have the money or whatever it might be, which is fair enough. But also, I know that if I had found a mentor a bit earlier, I could potentially be a bit further on where I need to be. And the third one, this is probably the biggest one, is stop caring what other people think about you. I think only this year, towards the end of last year and this year, did I actually believe in that, because before a year ago, I would never be posting on Instagram or whatever, right?
Yeah. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
love the content. Keep it up. So good.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, man. Like, PT gave me an excuse to post, right?
Yeah.
Because I had this huge thing of like, I need to be someone to be posting this stuff, right? Like, I need to be a personal trainer, or I need to like make money to online. And so when I became a PT, I just started posting heaps of content as a personal trainer to get clients. And obviously it worked. Like, I got a few clients coming through my social media, but now I'm sort of like, how can I keep using it to even grow something that I'm not yet, like a coach, for example, online personal training, online mentoring. How can I use it to grow me in that sense? And so I feel like once you overcome that initial judgment and you lose the followers that you're meant to lose, because that's what happens. You know what I mean? Like, high school people will be like, who the hell does he think he is? Like, some cringe guy. Like, does he think he's some influencer? You know what I mean? Like, you get all those things.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side is you start to attract people that actually do follow you because they value what you post. They look up to you. And I would way rather have people like that on my feed, right? People who actually can get value. And I think that's a big one, right? Like, I would tell myself, you don't have to wait till you're something to do it. Just do it, bro. Like, man, I don't know what it is, bro, but like, we could literally die like tomorrow, bro. Like, why am I holding back?
Yeah.
You know? And that's just the biggest thing for me now is like, I could literally, like, death is my biggest motivator now. It's like, I could be gone tomorrow. So why aren't I not living at 100%? You know what I mean? Like, how can I 100%?
A very stoic philosophy, hey. Like, was it memento mori? I'm gonna fucking butcher it, but something like that. It's like you only like live in the one moment because it could be your last type of deal.
Bro, well, it is, man. You know what I mean? And when you kind of experience death firsthand, you're like, yeah, fuck, bro. Like,
I feel we don't actually realize like that because we live in such a comfortable place. I can order food with my phone and not have to leave my house. Like, we used to have to eat. Like, the reason we binge eat as well, right? Like, we used to have to, if you have one meal and you're not going to eat again for like 6 days because there's no tigers to catch.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, like we had to, you know, eat it all at once, and like that was it. And you just eat things that you find as opportunistic, but like nothing's opportunistic now. It's all there.
Yeah. So again, it kind of boils down to the awareness thing.
Yeah.
If you can develop that skill of being aware, you can enjoy the luxuries of convenience, but also know when to stop when you need to.
Oh, beautiful. Well said. Luxuries of convenience. That's again, it's like this societal thing that's kind of holding us in now. And it, like, we talk about cultural, like, this is a new cultural thing, is that convenience, you know? And it's hard because we got that old brain who's like, I just want to, like, I'm trying to protect myself. We need to survive.
The easiest part possible, exactly.
Yeah. But we've actually got to do the opposite now. David Goggins is great at that.
Man's a savage, though.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I want to see him live. That'd be wicked.
Get him on your podcast. That would be a long term.
Oh, mate, honestly, yeah, it's up there. Get the studio going.
Yeah,
I don't know, 5 years from now, hopefully get David Goggins on. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I love it. Tag him,
mate. Yeah, I appreciate you being on today. I think we'll wrap it up. We've that was super condensed. Like,
yeah, it was good.
I think there was one bit that there was no value. Like, it was just really good. A lot of takeaways as well. Like, I know for your, like, for a fact that the guys in your community listening to this are going to be like, this is a side of you they probably don't get to see in your short form content. So, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I'm grateful to have you to be able to share that message. Again, the whole point of High Performance Management Podcast is to extract the philosophies of living like an optimized life. Yeah. So, yeah, like, I appreciate you coming on. For everyone at home who wants to get in contact with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, probably just the Instagram with the easiest, man. Just Gareth Shand _PT. I'm sure you tag it when you post this video.
Of course. Yeah. Awesome.
It's man _up_WA if you want to kind of follow what we do at the schools and stuff. So
beautiful, man. That's great. Do you have any last finishing thoughts or?
No, man, I love it, bro.
Yeah.
I think this is a very well needed podcast. I just want it to be get out there and say as many people as you can. So let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, man. I'm gonna chop up a few bits. It's gonna be good. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Have a good weekend. Take care.
You too, mate.